This session is being recorded and will be available afterwards for review. And so, with that, let me hand it over to our presenter today, Arturo Bentin, Vice President, Professional Services at Optimize. Arturo?
Thank you, Chaz. Well, hello, everyone. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. Thanks for joining us for our webinar today. Like Chaz said, the topic for today is 5 tips for strategic alignment of sales and incentive compensation plans. My name is Arturo Bentin. I am a Vice President with the Professional Services Group here at Optimize. I've been with Optimize for the past 15 years, working with clients to solve their sales performance management problems. Our webinar today is going to be focused on ways to ensure that your sales compensation plans are in alignment with the strategy that you have laid out for your company. First of all, for those of you who are not familiar with us, Optimize provides both enterprise cloud applications as well as business process management services, all centered around improving sales and channels performance. We deliver our solutions through a combination of years of sales operations expertise, our own technology, and the application of proven business processes. Just a quick look, our client base, as you can see, it's very diverse. We help companies of really all shapes and sizes across a variety of industries, everything from life sciences to financial services, insurance, telecom. You'll see all of those represented here, which has really helped us to be able to pull best practices from all of these different industries to be able to provide our clients with really innovative ideas, things that maybe they haven't tried before, things that maybe are working for one industry that other industries have not yet seen, that our clients really appreciate. All right, so before we get started with the 5 tips, I want to talk a little bit about why it's important, right? Why is this topic important? Why is it important to align your sales compensation plans with your company strategy? In order to execute your strategy, everybody at all levels of the organization needs to be contributing to it, right? Everybody needs to be working together as a team to try to achieve those goals. And that includes making sure that your sales compensation plans are rewarding the right behaviors, right? So this is the message that you're putting out there to your sales force. These are the things that you need to focus on. These are the things that we're going to pay you for, right? Are all of these things driving the behaviors that are going to help you achieve that top level strategy? And that's really what's important. If there's any inconsistency there, what you're going to end up with is a sales force that's out there doing what they think is right? Maybe selling more of a particular product or trying to bring in specific clients, whatever it might be, but that may not be helping you achieve your goals. So in their mind, they think they're doing great. You're paying them for that particular behavior, but if at the end of the day, that's not helping you achieve your overall company strategy, then you definitely have a mismatch there. These types of inconsistencies are going to result in lower productivity, right? You're not going to be producing as much as you thought you were, lower sales potentially, and ultimately higher costs for you in trying to correct that, right? So you're spending a lot of money in trying to drive the wrong behaviors, and then you have to spend even more money to try to correct that and bring everybody back into alignment with your strategy. So think about how often your business is changing, right? How many times a year do you adapt your strategy to better compete or to deal with fluctuations in the market? I would venture to say that your strategy changes pretty regularly, and as that landscape, changes, your business is changing its strategy to try to keep up. But now, how often are your compensation plans changing to keep up with those changes in strategy? Most companies are typically on an annual cycle for their compensation plans, which doesn't always work for keeping your salespeople aligned to that strategy, right? If you're only changing once a year, that you're not really keeping up. In some cases, we only see minor changes year over year to compensation plans, while the strategy is going through major changes, right? There's definitely some misalignment there. Again, this isn't really helping us achieve our goals, because the message to the field and the behaviors that we're rewarding are not the ones that are going to help us get there. It's definitely critical that your salespeople at all levels understand your strategy and what you're trying to accomplish as a company. So think about how you're getting the message out there. Is it visible to them? Do they have opportunities to ask questions and really understand it? Do they know how they can contribute to that goal and how they're going to be rewarded for doing so? So as you look ahead at 2016 and developing plans for next year and beyond that, think about these 5 tips that we're going to talk about as you're going through that process. So our first tip: ensure clear understanding of the strategy company-wide, right? Ideally, the behaviors and efforts of everyone in the sales force should be directed towards achieving that company strategy. But for this to happen, the sales force needs to first clearly understand what that strategy is, and more importantly, they need to understand the role that they're going to be playing in helping the company achieve that strategic goal. This understanding can come from many different places, from high-level communications from leadership, establishing what those goals are, right? Really getting in front of it and letting people know, here's what we're planning to do this year. This is our goal. We're all going to be working together as a team to achieve that, right? Explain to people the importance of reaching those goals, right? If we hit this, here's what's going to happen. For example, if the goal is to gain market share, right? Explain how we're going to go about doing that. What competitors are we trying to take market share from? What strategies are we going to be using? Explain what the current situation is. Where do we expect to be by year end, right? Get everybody bought into that strategy. And this needs to translate into something that's very specific and actionable, something that your salespeople, can actually go out and do, right? How does your average rep contribute to that high level goal? Once that message is out there, I think reinforcing that message regularly, so maybe through meetings with their managers or maybe some regular communications, just letting people know, hey, here's how we're tracking, right? Or maybe there's been a potential change to that strategy and you need to communicate that as well. So definitely reinforcing that message throughout the year is very important as well. And one test that you can run to see if this is actually working is to call on a sampling of your salespeople, right? Pull some reps, pull some managers aside and ask them the question, hey, do you understand what our company strategy is? What are you doing to help us get there? And see what they say. Some may be right on the mark and some may be completely off base, right? They may say, oh, I'm out here selling this particular thing, or I'm trying to bring in these customers, and you'll realize, pretty quickly that they haven't gotten the message, and that's a sign that you need to do something about it. And this isn't just limited to your salespeople, reps, managers. This is something that definitely needs to be communicated at all levels, right? Executives need to understand the plan. Everybody on down through, plan administrators, analysts. Everybody needs to understand that plan to be able to, speak in one voice when asked the question, what are we trying to do here? You should be spending time explaining to your sales force how their comp plans are rewarding the behaviors that will ultimately help the company achieve their goals. It's not enough for them to just go out and sell without a plan, right? I think we've established that. We may want them focused on selling specific products or selling to specific customers, and those are the behaviors that the plan is going to reward the most. So our second tip is to proactively monitor plans for misalignment. And I know most of you are probably already doing this, but once you have these your plans in place, this is the next most important thing that you need to do. You've definitely planned for you've made some assumptions, I guess, about how those plans are going to help you achieve your goals. But is that actually happening? Right now is the time to sit down and look at, okay, we laid out a plan. Well, how is that plan working out? If it's not working, you need to find out as quickly as possible so that you can make changes to those plans. I can't stress enough that it is extremely important that you dedicate resources to this. If you don't make this part of your regular process and dedicate people's time to it, it's just not going to happen, or it's not going to happen to the degree that it's going to matter, right? Establish regular rhythms. Are you checking in weekly? Are you checking in monthly? Right? What are you looking for, and how do you know if you've gone off track? You should start by establishing your baseline, right? Know what you're expecting. So if we laid out a plan and we know that we're going to be growing by X%, or we're going to be increasing market share by this much, or whatever it is, that is what you're expecting to happen. Now, for example, with if you're expecting growth in certain segments or more market share in certain geographies, whatever it might be, this is what you're going to be comparing against as you're monitoring your plan throughout the year. You can also look to industry best practices or maybe industry benchmarks to kind of gauge how you're comparing against those particular things. You can use a lot of different tools. Reporting will give you, graphical representations of how you're doing with this. It's very easy to, have a report run weekly that you're presenting to a certain group of people, and they're looking at it to see whether you're on track or you're not. Um, Dashboards are also great. They give you kind of in-your-face indicators of how well you're performing, right? So you'll know if you're in the green or you're in the red. You'll be able to look at, your data sliced and diced different ways by, geography or segment or channel, whatever it might be. But ultimately, all of this needs to create a feedback loop that is going to result in a variety of actions. You could end up addressing specific issues. Maybe it's issues with the sales force where maybe they don't understand the plan, or maybe you need to tweak some plan parameters to get them moving in the right direction. Or it may signal that your plans aren't getting you what you need, and you may need to go through a pretty big overhaul of the plans for your next cycle. And like we said before, this definitely needs to be part of a regular rhythm. So you need to make sure that you're doing this often and catching problems before it's too late. So our third tip, establish and enforce clearly defined exception criteria. Now, we know we've gone through this multiple times. Exceptions are a necessary evil when you're managing a plan, but they can very quickly turn into a big distraction if you don't manage them properly. Too many exceptions are going to result in a plan that could be compromised because not everyone is playing by the same rules. Those exceptions can sometimes also be in direct conflict with the strategy that you've laid out. Why should the sales force benefit when the company's not meeting their goals? If you've done everything right to this point, then you've invested a lot of time and effort into building a great plan that aligns with your company goals. But if you undermine it with exceptions, then now that effort is wasted. The entire sales force should feel like they're working together to meet that bigger goal and that everyone is being treated fairly. But like I said before, sometimes those exceptions can't be avoided. And if you must have those exceptions, then you need to try to create rules around those exceptions. Build processes around them so that they're more easily dealt with. Expect that you will have exceptions, but set up rules to manage them and just treat them as part of the process. As new situations come up, which they definitely will, just set up new rules to manage them, but really question whether those exceptions should even exist. Because before you know it, you're going to end up with a lot of these on your hands, and like I said, that could end up undermining your overall compensation plan, and you might be working against yourself here. Another thing to be mindful of is that a lot of exceptions can really start to erode your company culture. Like I said before, if everyone should really feel like they're a part of a big team, right? We mentioned this up front, that everyone should be working together to achieve this goal. But if they feel like certain people are being treated, differently for whatever reason it might be, they're going to feel like, hey, we're not all on a level playing field here, and this doesn't seem like it's really fair. All right. Our next tip is to periodically evaluate plan effectiveness. And I'm sure a lot of you are doing this already. Plan effectiveness checks should really be a part of your regular process. But these are really great indicators of whether your plans are in alignment, something that we should be relying on to see if we're on the right track. How do our distributions look? Are we paying the people that are exhibiting those right behaviors, right? The people that are actually out there helping us achieve that company strategy? And if we're not paying those people, why not? What do we need to tweak with the plan in order to pay the right people? Sometimes our gut feel says one thing, but the data says something else. So we really need these checks to make sure that the people that we think are our top salespeople are actually the ones that are driving the right metrics that are in alignment with that company strategy. You should also be looking, beyond just whether you're paying the right people the most money, but also look at other things like job satisfaction and retention, right? Is this plan helping you retain those salespeople that you value the most? If the plan is maybe treating them unfairly, or they feel like maybe it's biased in some way, and they're leaving the company, that's a sign that something's wrong. Maybe the plan is too difficult to achieve, or a sign that maybe you need to change something there. Try looking at your data across a lot of different dimensions, right? Try to find patterns, right? Is it maybe specific geographies, or maybe channels, or products, whatever it might be, to try to gain some of that insight that's going to help you better manage your plans. Your plans may be working in certain geographies, but maybe not in others. Why is that? Why is that happening? Do we have different plans for different geographies? If not, should we, right? Maybe not all of them are the same. They're not all equal. We may have strategies for different groups that we want to drive. So maybe they should have different plans, right? Why are we, painting everybody with the same brush when maybe that's not really what what's going to help us achieve those goals. Um, the tools that you use, again, you can use many different tools, but you should make sure that the tools that you have are going to let you drill down into that data and help you find those issues, right? So we talked about looking at things across different dimensions, but are you able to really drill down and find the problem, right? All your tools should help you with that. Um, you should definitely include key decision makers in this process as well. Bring your executives in, share this information with them, show them how, the decisions that they've made around strategy and how that's translated into plans and now how ultimately it's all playing out, right? Here are the people that we're paying the most. Is that in alignment with the company's strategy? And if it's not, if there are problems, then you have these people in the room who are the ones that can make decisions about, changing it, because really it's key that if there are issues that we're making those changes quickly so that we can course correct, maybe make a change for next quarter or next month or whatever it might be to try to get things back in alignment. You don't want to wait too long to make those changes, because then you'll definitely be in trouble. All right. Our fifth tip: use contests and spiffs sparingly. Now, and as I've been working with different companies, there's varying levels of this. Some companies use contests a lot, other companies don't use them as much. But what I'm trying to call out here is that contests and spiffs, much like exceptions before, can be a distraction. They definitely serve a specific purpose, but they can also be a distraction from that big picture, that core plan that you've put in motion. So you need to be very careful with that. Our goal, as we mentioned before, is to get everybody aligned to that core plan. That's what's going to help us achieve our strategic goals. But you have obviously spent a lot of time developing that plan that is going to drive specific behaviors. And if you add a distraction like a contest, you could end up with results that work against your goal, and that's not what you want. If there are specific metrics that you want to drive, metrics that are tied to some of these contests, and try to work those into the core plan so they're not treated or seen as something, outside of that. Reserve the contest for when you feel like they're really necessary. Maybe you're launching a new product, or excuse me, you want to drive attention, to that product launch, or you want to push a little harder on, something specific, or maybe it's a market, or whatever it might be. So in those cases, it makes sense to use a contest, but definitely make sure that whatever you're rewarding with that contest is not in direct conflict with your core plan, right, or that strategy that you've set up. The contests that you roll out should have a clear beginning and an end, so that the message that you're putting out there is, hey, it's okay to focus on this contest, but it's only for a short while, and then you're going to return to your primary focus, which is this core plan. So that's one way to look at it. You're going to find that if your compensation plan is in alignment with your strategy, right, if you've included all of those things that you want to drive, that you're not going to be relying on contests as much, that you're not going to need them. And as a result, you're going to avoid some of these potential distractions. So a few things here as we try to understand what we just talked about. The first one, we talked about regular rhythms. This is definitely very important. Make sure you're establishing those regular rhythms. Make it a part of your regular process to ensure that your plans are in alignment with your strategy. Understand that this is absolutely not a one-time effort. This is something that you need to be doing fairly frequently, especially in business environments that are changing or evolving quickly. This is also particularly true if you have a sudden change like a merger or an acquisition or something like that, because that throws that strategy out the window. You're now looking at completely different things. You're trying to compete, and your sales compensation plans need to keep up with that. You can't keep paying the way you were paying before and expect to achieve your goals. Understand that your business is going to change frequently. That is a given. Your business strategy is going to evolve, and your plans definitely need to keep up. One thing that you can do to make your life a little bit easier is to establish a foundation of processes and systems that are flexible, right? Parameterized, that are where you're going to be able to adapt quickly to your changing business. So you don't want to be locked into something that's, rigid, or that is going to, force you down a path where you're making bad decisions because your systems or your processes can't keep up. So you want to have something nimble underneath that's going to allow you to make these changes. Wherever possible, try to keep things simple, right? The Salesforce can only focus on so many things. So if you start to put too many things out there, they're going to get distracted. Much like, with the exceptions or contests, you want to keep everyone focused on what's most important, right? What are you really trying to drive? Um, and finally, make sure that you're rewarding those behaviors that are helping you achieve your goals, right? This is going to naturally push people to do the things that you need them to be doing. So if the money's over here, people are going to follow that money, and they're going to know that the things that they were doing in the past are not what's going to get them paid. It's these new things that we've laid out. And that may cause some anxiety with Salesforce, and that now they're being asked to do something different. But ultimately, this is what you need, right? This is the direction the company's going, and it may be new, but people need to fall in line and do those things, and you need to reward those people that are doing that by paying them more for doing those things. All right. Um, just wanted to take a quick pause here and see if there's any questions that have come in. It looks like there's a couple. Um, Let's see. There's one question here. What about tracking metrics like compensation cost of sales? So that's an interesting one. Um, Definitely, compensation cost of sales is very important. So as you're rolling out these plans, you need to be looking at, how much is it costing us to drive this company strategy? And that's not, a big number at the top. This is something that you need to be looking at, again, across various dimensions, right? Across geographies or channels or products or whatever it might be, and ask yourself that question: What is it costing us to drive this strategy? This is definitely one that you want to look at over time as well. So is that compensation cost of sales increasing? Is it decreasing? Right, as we change this particular parameter, or the rules for how we're paying certain people, is that compensation cost of sales going up? Is it going down? You can also look at where are these parameters being managed? Some companies have a central group of administrators that owns these parameters, and they're establishing, how people are going to get paid across the country or the globe. But in other situations, you have more of a distributed administration, where you have maybe regional offices that are setting parameters, and you could have certain metrics where they're looking at their own cost of sales, right? And maybe you're giving them a goal to drive that cost of sales down, right, over time. So you're saying, hey, look, the Northeast region, can get the job done, and they're only paying X percent, of, in to get that done, and the Southeast region looks like they're paying double, right? Why is that happening? So ask those questions, and maybe turn this into a metric that, I'm not saying you compensate people on it, but that people are definitely looking at, because it's something that they have control over. So work that into your regular rhythms, much like you would, your distributions or anything else. Look at that compensation cost of sales. I think we have time for another quick question here. Would gamification also be considered a potential distraction like contests? So, we're hearing this a lot. People looking to gamify certain aspects of, either contests or the core plan. And I don't think it has to be a distraction. Especially if you're looking to gamify, like I said, aspects of that core plan, right? Really, what this will get you is actually more engagement, right? Because people will think it's fun, and it's interactive. They're getting maybe a nice visual of how they're tracking against their plan, and how ultimately it's helping the company achieve their goals. Um, so understand that you could be drawing focus to specific elements, right? Where people may say, oh, this is a cool gamified element, so that's where I'm going to be spending all of my time. But maybe that's what you want. Maybe your company strategy calls for a focus in one specific area, so you've got people, you gamify it to kind of draw attention to it. So No, it doesn't have to be a distraction like contests. We do apply these concepts, gamification concepts, to contests as well. And much like they can help draw attention to the right things, they can also help draw attention to the wrong things. So you need to be careful with that. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at benteen@optimize.com, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I invite all of you to visit our blog. There's lots of interesting articles there that I think you'll like. So thanks, everyone.